All right, everybody, this is Ross the Fig Boss. So in today's figs, I probably have to adjust that slightly because Smith has just been so impressive. Um, but I have to say that this fig's got it all. And so it even tastes amazing, by the way. It tastes among the best figs I grow. And so for anybody in a short season climate, this is very early. For anybody in a humid climate, this is incredibly rain resistant. For anyone in a dry, hot climate, it tastes amazing. So it goes pretty much everywhere. And then Salame over here, for anyone that doesn't know about this fig, it seems to be rather similar. And I had speculated along with an Italian grower friend of mine named Gabriel, shout out to Gabriel, who had contacted me this winter with an article that was written by Belfiore Nursery in Italy. And there's some of them really more respected fig growers that I have seen publish fig information. And so they are in northern Italy, and they have put up a article there that I was linked, an article about growing figs in northern Italy and some of the challenges and why it can be difficult. And they put in there actually 4 varieties in the article that are really well suited for that climate. And one of them is Verdolino. But they have it labeled as Salame, which is kind of interesting. So when I look at the photos, though, of their Salame that they have in the article, it looks a lot like Verdolino, and I think they're synonyms, which makes me think that this Salame I have over here must be a synonym of Verdolino. But now that I'm observing the Salame firsthand, it does seem to be a bit different. And so the story goes, though, with these 2 figs is that I got both of them from my friend Mario in Connecticut. And Mario has since passed, but he's done a really great job for the fig communities, for people in the United States growing figs, because he used to import a lot of Italian wine. He would go around to different wineries throughout Italy. I think he told me at one point he went to over 300 different wineries. And he would go in his travels and find and look at these very special figs at wineries, at different towns. And he would, of course, bring back then the cuttings from these trees and import them illegally. I'm sure he doesn't mind me saying that now at this point. But you know, he really did an amazing thing, because there's such important and amazing genetics in Italy that we did not have here in the United States. And so he has found or brought back here some really special varieties. Like, you know, some of the others that he's brought back are like Pastelliere, Nerucilla de Elba, this Verdolino, Salame. He even brought a Moro de Caneva type with him, Rosalino. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. There's a huge list. Even this new fig that I'm really a fan of, called Castle Tricino, I find is really quite special and unique. So this is one of them, and I would never have this fig if it wasn't for him, basically. And so this Salame also comes from him. Both of them, by the way, are not from just random trees in Italy. They are actually from Paulo's collection at Pomona Gardens. So these are well documented, you know, well cared after varieties, excuse me, that have some history to them. And so I've been wanting to compare the two. I've just not really had the opportunity. A bunch of the squirrels got a number of my Verdolino and Salame figs, by the way. Out of all the figs on my patio, they went after those 2. I don't know what that was about, but I was not able to enjoy them. And so now it's like early October, and we're finally getting a taste of both of them. And hopefully it's reasonable and I can make some comparisons because, again, in that article, it looked like Salame was a match, or at least they called it Salame, for Verdolino. And so this is a nice little interesting comparison because if they aren't the same, well, then that means I found, or at least have, two really, really nice figs for this climate. Now, obviously, there should be probably some differences, but if they're the same, then, you know, it's not the end of the world because then I have, of course, more copies of such an amazing variety, and that's okay with me too. But I would rather them be actually slightly different. So maybe I'm going to be slightly biased, but so let's compare the two. We'll pick a couple of these fruits and then cut them open. I really have some unusual rust this year on my Salame tree, and it's affecting the figs themselves. And I also have a lot of rust this year on different varieties. In fact, by where this tree was, it's just a weird year for rust. But that's why this fig is so dark. I don't think this fig really would look like that. Obviously, it would form some sugar spots. That's, I think, pretty much of a guarantee. Just notice that the eye is slightly open on that. This Verdolino here has a closed eye and the eye is plugged with honey. And the big difference that I'm seeing here, which I'll show you guys in a second, is the length of the stem and the length of the neck, and also the overall size of the fruit. So here it is, and you can really get a good idea. So Salame is there on the left, and then Verdolino is there on the right. And you see how long that stem is compared to the Salame. It definitely has a shorter stem, and the neck is also seemingly longer. The size of the fig is also longer. Different shape, and the shape is really the most consistent and best way to identify a variety. This one here obviously has a very different shape, and so this is probably a very unusual fig. Probably not even ripe, but maybe had a problem when it was forming, as both of these trees are just very young. And so it's hard to even, by the way, make a comparison at this point. These trees are just so small. Yeah, this thing I don't think has any, oh, it actually has some kind of pulp there to, maybe we can gather some information from. Oh, and that looks nice. This does not, from what I remember though, look like Verdolino. And then here is the Verdolino, which looks very watered down, as this is a young tree. That's a shame. And also these figs pretty much did go through a hurricane. Yeah, they both look very watered down. And it's just probably due to the simple fact that these are just very young trees. But looking at the inside, it looks so different. It really does. They really don't look the same at all. You know, but it's really hard to tell from the pulps of these. I don't think we can draw any conclusions from the pulp because it is watered down. You can tell that the coloration's wrong. It looks like some water may have even seeped in there, or maybe just too much soil moisture, which is my professional opinion. This Salame seems to have a slight void, which is interesting in this one. Very, very minor indent. And then, of course, the stem, the length of the neck, excuse me, is way longer and fatter than this very skinny, excuse me, and shorter neck, which is also quite long. But so, looking from that, I would say they're different figs. Now, let's taste them, because they may just be, I don't know, something like a Hardy Chicago, where they're very similar figs, but they have epigenetic differences. And that's why you're seeing the difference here in the shape. But it's hard to really say, because I'm not going to be able to really gather much information from the flavor of this. side by side, but I do remember what Verdolino tastes like. It's amazing. Really nice berry flavor, very thick and jammy. I just probably won't get any that are reasonable this year to eat. So side by side comparison just can't be made. So that does indeed remind me a bit like the Verdolino. But again, it's so hard to remember. It was a whole year, basically, since I've had some Verdolino figs off my in-ground tree last year. And yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. So I think for now, it's safe to say that they're different. I don't see a real reason to call them exactly the same. Maybe they are similar, like the Hardy Chicagos, and then they have epigenetic differences. So maybe that's a question for next season. We do have one down here. No, that's not right. I don't think any of these really will be that good. Let's try the Verdolino just to see. It actually has some honey coming from the eye, which is, yeah, it's totally watered down. No flavor whatsoever. Let's try this Salame again. So this is really thick and jammy. The sweetness level is a little bit low, as again, this is just like a struggle year for these young trees. And I'm not really picking up a ton of berry, but it does seem like there is a little bit of berry in there, which would again line up with the Verdolino. Now, I have seen some photos, by the way. I want to mention this. I think of the Salame that has an amber pulp. And there's been a number of photos. Even I saw a photo that was taken at Pomona Gardens. I think what happens is as this fig ripens early on in its development, it is amber. So if you cut open an unripe fig, it will probably be amber, I imagine. And then as it starts to finally ripen, the pulp turns red. Now, I haven't noticed that with Verdolino. I will also mention that the skin on Salame seems entirely different. It seems a much harder skin and tougher, whereas the Verdolino here has more of a softer, almost velvety skin quality to it. Again, I don't know how that's going to continue. I imagine they probably will be a bit chewy as the figs mature and as they dry on the tree, but anyway, that's this little comparison. I really wish I had more information, but for now, that Salame actually is really good. There's no doubt in my mind that I should be trying to make more copies of it and spread that one around. We don't know a ton about it, but obviously it tastes great. I know it ripens probably relatively early. If I look at Mario's sheet, I'm sure we can make some observations. I got some nice air layers I put on this year over here as well. We did put on actually we planted one of these in the ground. This leaf here looks a bit like a black mission. Same thing, I guess, with this leaf, but not exactly. And I think this is what the leaf pattern is supposed to look like, which is almost like a Celeste, believe it or not. So it has like these leaf patterns. Again, this is almost like a Celeste, or almost even like a Hardy Chicago. But this one here is like a black mission. And then if we look here at the Verdolino, this is, I think, what the leaf pattern's definitely supposed to look like on Verdolino. So I think this is a pretty good leaf pattern if you're going to use these to compare to your own. Here we go. Here's another one. And then down here in lower vigor, we have single spades, which, you know, as the vigor changes, as these grow quicker, you will see a difference in the leaf pattern. I'm not seeing any single spade leaves on this Salame. So that's great news, honestly. I'm happy about that. I think they're definitely different. To how different, I'm not sure just yet. But for me, that's nice. because that's two really nice figs with a really nice shape that should do really well here, with the addition now of Salame, with the knowledge we've gained. And yeah, I thank you guys for watching this one. Shout out to Mario. You know, you have to thank him all the time for what he's done. And then also check out our blog, figboss.com. We just recently put out a new page there, a variety page that you can see all the varieties that I'm growing, or at least that I've written about. It's so beautiful. I love how it came out. Check out our blog, figboss.com. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you guys for the next one. Take care.